Hello and welcome to MMA Crypt Fighting Talk. For today's show, we'll be discussing recent Twitter beef, a new signing, and a fight that will not sign. Okay, joining me today as always, Mr. Brian Hunt and Greg Marshall. I believe there is something you want to say before we kick off today's show, Brian. Go ahead.
Well, there is a UFC fighter, Shane Del Rizio, had a heart attack, and it doesn't sound like a very good heart attack, pretty bad one. So I just want to put some love out there to his fans, himself, and his family. It's the holidays here in the U.S. It's a tough time to have somebody go down like that, and I'm pulling for him. I'm sure there's lots of MMA fans out there pulling for him also. That's it.
For sure. Okay, guys, let's kick things off with round one. Sanchez and McGregor go at it on Twitter. Now, before I read a couple of the tweets out, I have to ask, did you see the back and forth Twitter exchange between Diego Sanchez and Conor McGregor? Let's go with you first, Greg.
Yeah, I've seen them. Quite funny. Diego takes them to heart, I think. Conor uses them more just as a bit of a fun way to get a bit of promotion for himself. I thought they were quite funny and quite harmless.
Brian, did you see the tweets?
I saw a couple of them, but I did not go through the full extent of them. And seeing how Conor is, I could see it being just fun for him and a good way to keep the media, his name in the media type of thing. But
well, for the listeners at home who don't know what we're talking about, it's going to read a couple of the tweets out now. Let's start with Conor McGregor. You're the fattest, sloppiest, slowest martial artist I've laid my eyes on. I'd go up to 170 to whoop your fat ass, and then in big capital letters, easy. I can't really see what it's a welterweight there, so he's definitely talking the shit.
Wow.
Shall we get a reply from Diego Sanchez here? Just because Dana takes you for a ride in his Ferrari does not make you the next best thing. The guy is talented, very, but hype is just hype. What do you make of those tweets there, guys?
Yeah, I think they're funny. Conor, obviously, like we're saying, he's using them as a bit of fun way to try and keep his name in the media. And Diego obviously doesn't like it, but at least he had a bit of a good go back at him. And then he started it again this week again with his own offer of a fight.
I see the fun of it, but I do have some slight issues with it, coming from a guy that couldn't even answer the bell tomorrow. So picking fights that you can't fight, I do have a slight issue with that. It's kind of like saying, well, if you want to fight, well, hit me up in 6 months, then I'll fuck you up. Well, no, let's fight now. Well, I can't. Or that part kind of bothers me, and I don't like the showing disrespect. I mean, Diego Sanchez has sold a lot of fights, and I'm not a big fan of him. The yes, the no, whatever the hell it is, he likes to chant. But I do have some slight issues with it. Just respect the guy you're fighting, and Conor always does inside the cage. And this is a very clear way to just keep him in the news. But it's not even the same weight class. Start building a fight that can actually really happen. I mean, I don't think anybody believes this fight's ever going to happen. So
it could possibly happen, though, Brian. Conor McGregor, he's fought at lightweight at Cage Warriors. He was the actual Cage Warriors lightweight champion. There's potential for it.
The potential at best. I mean, if you threw a percentage on it, would it be 50-50 fight, or would it be a 10% fight that it's going to happen?
I'd say no. With a Twitter beef, I think there's a good 70 to 80% chance of this happening.
Wow, okay.
I'd side on 10% personally.
Why is that, Greg?
Well, Conor's already been told by Dana to stop thinking about jumping between weight classes, concentrate on 145, because that's where he's fighting in the UFC.
Well, McGregor seems to be getting called out by a lot of UFC fighters recently. Do you think this is because of Conor McGregor's arrogance? Let's go with you first, Greg.
Oh yeah, definitely. He had that interview with Ariel Helwani where he gave a comment on the top 10 guys in the 145 division, and he totally slaughtered them, telling them boring, wrestler, hits, doesn't hit hard, etc. They were all really upset about it, and so were their teammates. And that's one of the reasons Diego's been calling him out, I think, because it was one of his teammates he upset.
Well, he is the Don.
Well, there is that.
Brian, do you think it's because of his arrogance?
Yes, and I don't even find it as true arrogance. I I hope he doesn't believe everything he's saying. I mean, maybe he does, and he is pretty fucking arrogant. But no, I think he's having fun, and that's his way of showing it. Is it brash? Yeah, but I'm not. I get pretty offended by arrogant fighters pretty quickly, and I don't see the arrogance in it. I see it kind of being fun. But it's borderline. It is. He's crossing over to an area that these guys also fight, so he's got to be careful. I mean, he's picking up a lot of enemies, and we shall see. I don't think it's true arrogance, but if he says it long enough, you might start believing it, and it might become that.
I actually think Conor McGregor would actually take a fight up in weight against Diego. Do you think he's sort of playing with fire here? You know, he's had a good start to his UFC career. You know, just stay where you're at and stop trying to, mess around in other divisions. You know what I mean? Do you think this could backfire on him if he continues? Let's go with you first, Greg.
I think it could backfire on him, but I don't think it will, because I don't think he will get to jump divisions. He will continue doing what he's doing because that's what he likes to do. He likes to keep his name in the press. He likes to have a good time, and I think his future is just going to be exactly as it is just now.
Ryan, do you think he's making some risky decisions?
It's a ballsy move, but if he goes up in weight and loses, that never looks as bad, in my opinion. But if he goes up in weight, I think there's a lot of return from this fight if it were to happen. If he goes up in weight and dominates Diego, that probably puts him about a year ahead of schedule, in my opinion. He's going to lose about a year because of the injury, but that jumps him. That jumps him a lot in the 145, in my opinion. So it could be a really, maybe gets him back to even as far as losing the year, but God, the way he is in the media, I'm not sure if he's lost any freaking 145 status. So he might have moved up a couple in the rankings somehow with all his talk, but it could be a jump for him. It really could move him closer to the top 5, in my opinion, with the win against Diego.
Should the UFC put this fight on, Greg? You know, if you was Zuffa management, would you put this fight on?
If I'm Zuffa management, no, I don't. Conor's really big in the media just now. He's a big name for them. Dana's often said that nobody's had the same kind of hype that McGregor's got other than Brock Lesnar. So he's massive. And the risk of losing to Diego Sanchez, I think, is too big. I think they'll want him to stay exactly where he wants to be, where they want him to be, which is at 145. And I think that's probably what they're going to do. But you never know.
Ryan, you seem to be warming to the idea of those two fighting. If you was Zuffa management, would you put this fight on?
I wouldn't today. I really wouldn't. I don't think there's enough of a demand for the fight. But as Greg said, it's about the money. And if enough fans start screaming for this fight, then I could see them doing it. I definitely could see them doing it. I don't think Diego has a... I mean, he fought Gilbert better than I think some of us expected. That third round was pretty amazing. But that's typical Sanchez. I don't think he's a top 3 guy, and he's not a bottom 20 guy. He's in the middle, up and down, and always pulls on a gutsy fight. So it's a real good fight for Diego. I mean, it keeps him in the media quite a bit, and it's an exciting fight for him. Conor, it has its rewards, and it has some drawbacks. So I'm 50-50. I don't... If this continues on for 4 months, yeah, it's going to happen. It really is going to happen.
Okay, moving on to round 2, and a very interesting topic. Heel-hook specialist, who's Amar Pallarez, signed with World Series of Fighting this week. I want to get straight to the point on this, guys. We know it's a risky move by World Series, but do you think their gamble will pay off in the end, Brian?
No. The guy, I mean, he hasn't learned how to let go of holds, and I don't know why. It's not a... It's he doesn't do it. I think he's a steroided monster type of thing. He's just so freaking amped up that he just doesn't notice somebody trying to he gets his game face on, and he's just gone. I mean, he's just a monster, I think. So if he can fix it, it could be a good thing for him. But I mean, he's also under a microscope, and we've seen the one video I was posted on our site. Oh, 5 bad things. Well, 3 of them weren't that bad. I mean, one's like a horrible ref stoppage, and people seem to think you have to let go of the hold when the fighter taps. You do not. I mean, and that's where people screw up. If you're tapping, that don't mean shit. It does not mean shit to you as a fighter. It means something to the ref to get in there. You stop when the ref gets in there. Now, they better have good refs. I mean, I'd want the thinnest, fastest ref possible if I was fighting this guy, because when I'm tapping, I want him breaking right away. I mean, if bell rings, I got my hand up in the air ready to tap if he's looking at my leg. So I want a quick ref also. So it's a 50-50 move. There's some decent fights in there for him, so we shall see. But he's under a microscope. He better fucking let go of it pretty quick.
Greg, do you think he was worth the gamble by World Series of Fighting?
I think he's worth the gamble. I think there's not many places for him to go. So I think the money that they'll be paying him won't be all that big just now. So I think they've got a good value. I would assume they've got good value there. And the gamble's worth it because he's a big name regardless of what his past is. And whether he wins or not doesn't really matter. If he wins, they've promoted this guy. If he loses, then the guy beat Palhares. So I think the gamble's worth it. I think it's a good signing, and I think as much as I don't like what he does, I think I'll definitely move on. And as for will he let go next time, he didn't think he did anything wrong in that last fight, and his teammates all came out in support of him saying he did nothing wrong. So he'll not change the way he's going to fight.
I think he's a cracking signing, to be honest with you. You know, he's obviously one of the best in the world. Will fighters refuse to fight him? You know, because obviously the management's going to be warning them, and the sponsors going to be saying, "Hey, I don't want you to fight this guy." You know, what about if he snaps your fucking leg? You tap and he carries on. He snaps your leg. You can't fight for over a year. You know, so there's a risk there. Will people want to fight him? I know World Series they got some experienced fighters right now who probably will step in against him, but possibly do you think this could cause problems with potential opponents there, Greg?
Well, John Fitch has already came out and said he won't fight him. He will not fight him. Simple as that. He's no interest in fighting him whatsoever. So what happens if Palhares beats, I don't know, say Berkman in his first fight? They're going to be looking to put him in a title fight. If Fitch beats Steve Carroll, then Fitch is going to have to fight him.
Well, you sort of bring me on to my next topic here. Obviously, we know World Series, they put an offer forward to Ben Askren. They also have a pretty stacked middleweight division at the moment. We know Palhares moved down to welterweight in his UFC career, but he spent most of his career at middleweight. So, right now, if you was World Series of Fighting Management, would you throw Palhares in against Askren if they signed him, or would you bump him up to the middleweight division? Because obviously it's pretty stacked right now. That's for you first, Greg.
I would throw him to Askren, hopefully to find out where exactly Askren is as much as anything. But I think, with what I said previously about Fitch not wanting to fight Palhares, I think they may look to bring him in as a middleweight rather than a welterweight.
Brian, would you take the gamble and hold out for Askren to sign potentially? Or would you sort of arrange a fight maybe against a lesser welterweight or push him up to middleweight early now?
I'd probably start with middleweight and see if he can have success there. He's a big guy. I know he's done welterweight, but I think he'd be more comfortable being middleweight. And I mean, there's Jesse Taylor's. I think they have Kami over there. Guy I always kind of liked Harris. Do they have Harris over there? No, he's a welterweight, isn't he? So
I'll read out the middleweight division for you right now. They've got Dave Branch, who's 13-3. They got Elvis Mutapcic, who's 13-2, another hot prospect. JT Money, obviously. Jesse Taylor. They got Danilo Villafort, another UFC veteran. Yushin Okami. Dustin Jacoby. Yeah, and Paulo Filo. So there's some good names there.
Yeah. I'd go Paulo, and see if Paulo's on drugs still, and see if he's fighting ghosts, and see where that's at. I'd like that fight.
I think he's fucking stoned. Have you seen his little lumberjack jacket with the fucking sleeves cut off, He's definitely been doing some own fucking shopping there, hasn't he, eh?
There's a story behind that jacket. There's a pretty good story. I think.
You know what it is?
Something with. Oh my God! I'm gonna butcher it. It's a car wreck, maybe dad's. You have to look it up. There is a story with that shirt, I believe, or maybe I'm the one on drugs. But I think there is some sort of story about it, and I just can't remember it.
Okay, I reckon he's dead. Fucking hell, I better take that back. You probably fucking murdered me. I'm just joking, Paolo. I'm just joking. I don't really mean it. You got lovely jackets. Lovely. I'd love to see it because Paolo Filho, he's got like a solid ground game, and he can control fighters all the way through, and his submissions, there's not many what can rival him. It's like it's not so much the technique, he's very strong in his control and keeping tight to you, sort of like Damian Maia, but he just seems to out-muscle people. He normally goes for that arm triangle. He does that beautifully, the way he gets to mount into side control. I'd love to see him in Palares. Could you imagine it?
My issue with it is watching Filho against Dave Branch at World Series of Fighting 2. Filho looked awful. He gave up. He gave up fighting. He gave up halfway through the fight. It was awful. And I'm not sure they'll ever give him a fight again, to be fair.
Okay, then Filho back in his day, then when he was in his
back
prime.
in his day.
That'd have been a fucking wicked fight. Absolutely awesome. Okay, guys, moving on to our third and final round. This is a subject that makes me a little sad, to be honest, as I really wanted to see this guy fight some of the best in the UFC. Shinya Aoki declined an offer from the UFC to instead stay in Asia. What's your thoughts on this, Brian?
If he's not going to wrestle, don't. If he's not going to learn wrestling, don't come over here. He would be exposed. He'd be exposed badly by the wrestling over here. He doesn't seem like a guy that is willing to evolve. He's a one-dimensional fighter, amazing at that one dimension, but he's not going to evolve. He's decided a while ago not to evolve, in my opinion. So no, he would be grossly exposed over here by the wrestling that the UFC has to offer. I mean, the Brits are becoming good wrestlers. What does that tell you? I mean, what does that tell you? The Brits can actually wrestle. Michael Bisping can wrestle now. So the wrestlers would just eat him up, in my opinion. And unless I thought he talked about coming over and training with Melendez a little bit after that fight, but I don't know if that ever happened. No, he's not willing to be a professional MMA fighter. He wants to be a fighter over there, and maybe some of the events are staged a little bit more. He has a better chance of winning. No, I'm not. It's fine. I'm fine. If you don't want it, I don't beg you to do it. At a time, I'd have loved to seen it, but no, go away.
Well, you mentioned the wrestling. It's also the boxing too. Did you watch the Eddie Alvarez fight?
Oh yeah. I mean, he's a one-dimensional guy, and so if he can't get you to fall on top of him on the ground or something like that, he's not going to do it. Then you get somebody like Melendez that did take him to the ground and even owned him there also. So it's his one dimension is absolutely amazing. Some probably top 3 in the world, but that's all he's got. And it's mixed. He's not mixed. He's a martial artist. He's not mixed. So I don't. No, just go away at this point in time.
Greg, what's your thoughts on Aoki declining the UFC's offer? Well, for me, it's not so much just Aoki turning it down. It was the fact that there's been a group of them turning the UFC down recently. Obviously, Eddie Yang was given the same deal at the same time as Aoki, and he turned it down. And previously, Bibiano Fernandez turned down the UFC as well. It seems to me that these guys are able to earn a lot more money fighting in Asia than they are fighting for the UFC, which is a bit of an issue when the UFC are trying to break into Asia, but they won't pay the smaller guys the same kind of money they'll pay the bigger guys. You'll see, for example, a heavyweight, just a bog standard everyday heavyweight at top 20, and you'll be getting 30,000 a fight, and the similar ranking of a bantamweight or a featherweight, they'll be on a 8 or 10,000 deal, and it's these guys are getting the 30,000 when they're fighting in Asia, and it will stop some of the top smaller guys signing for the UFC, which is a shame. Also, Mamad Khalidov and KSW as well, who turned down a contract because of the same reason.
It's not just that. It's like, people like AOK, they're 1 in a million, There's not going to be many Asian fighters what can market like he can, you know what I mean? He'll be getting all sorts of TV deals over there. He'll probably have a fucking lunchbox out. Get your Shinya AOK lunchbox for your kid, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't know. Something on those lines. He'd be raking it in over there. He has no need to come over personally. It's a shame. He's the one who has to look himself in the mirror and say, did I fight the best in the world? Okay, that's a wrap for today. To all our listeners out there, hope you enjoyed the show, and be sure to check out other episodes of MMA Crypt's Fighting Talk. From me, Brian and Greg, take care, goodbye.